This is episode 153, Morning Routines, Affirmations, Muslims Competing, and Boxing Men into a Stereotype. In this episode, we discuss fashion hacks for men, morning routines, whether self-help advice actually works, the benefit of self-admonishment, and being careful with having just one type of role model for men. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Mind Heist episode 153. Now, Muhammad, you know what? I'll tell you something, yeah? You're the fashionista of Mind Heist, right?
Is that why my hat and my top are matching?
Yeah, I'm questioning whether they're matching actually because it's a slightly different texture.
Well, you know, the concentration is up here because that's where the brain power is.
Okay, yes, I see
The
that.
color is concentrate. No, to be honest, I wanted to put a hat on because I've got a very, I'm going to show the listeners, I've got like a very obvious spot somewhere in my head that's been bugging me.
Bro, your perfect teeth distracts from any spots you may have.
Whoa. Did he just say that on
Lahi
air?
barak. Actually, you said that yourself at like 10 episodes ago. So you know it. You know it.
That was the old me. Now I'm humble.
Yeah, bro, you know, like myself, I'm not the most, I would say, creatively inclined person in terms of, how do I say it? Even the way I work, I'm not very come up with new stuff. I'm more like take a proven formula and tweak it or whatever. Like that's how I work best, and that's what I found to work for me, whatever, right? When it comes to clothing, I've you know, with anything, yeah. For example, I'll tell you rugby. When I used to play rugby, yeah, I you know, I didn't grow up in the UK, so I didn't really know about rugby until I first came across it when I was like 15. I started playing it when I was 15. And the coach just told me one thing, yeah? He's like, when you tackle, you just put your shoulder there, go low as possible, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he told me like 2-3 techniques. And I just memorized the technique, and I was, alhamdulillah, I was like the best tackler on the team, right? And I was one of the smallest people on the team, but it's just because the technique was good, right? So then I just I realized something about myself that I do that in everything. I'm like, okay, what's the formula? Let me copy paste the formula. So when it comes to clothing, I think I came up with a formula, yeah? Because what I used to buy, or I still do I buy a lot of just plain t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, plain ones. But one day my wife said, she said to me, she said, you know, those plain t-shirts, they look like pajamas.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I realized yeah, that's actually true. Because I like to analyze things like why is something like something, yeah?
Right.
And I think maybe she didn't say exactly like that, but I actually agreed and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Then I realized that texture makes a big difference, right?
Yep.
So if you want to look more sophisticated, right, then have texture in your clothes, right? Or have, so actually, well, what I'm wearing now, it's kind of plain, but it does have some texture in terms of, what's it called? Where you mix a cotton with polyester. You get I know this from when we used to do the clothing, tri-blend kind of thing, right? Three different materials, yeah. So that gives you a bit of texture, and they usually only use that with gray t-shirts, light gray, dark gray. But you could have, I've got something which is kind of like what you're wearing now, which is, what would you call that texture?
Oh, bro, this is my father's, to be honest.
It's like wool, wool, spotty wool. So that, straight away it makes you seem a bit more sophisticated, a bit better, Yani. I don't know how to describe it. So this is like a technique I realized, like don't buy plain clothes, like buy textured thing, and that straight away will just sort you out. And then I don't have to think about being creative about what I wear. I just buy those kind of things.
Maybe we're just not at that age though, bro. You know, I remember the prime age where I was just very selective about what I'd wear, and I was always buying clothes and stuff. And we spoke about this before, but I can't remember the last time I went into a shop and bought myself something like clothing wise. Like I said, this is my father's. I remember when my father passed away. I was staying at my mum's for quite a while. I didn't have that many clothes, so I figured I'm the only person who's going to inherit any of his clothing. Really. So I just went into his cupboard and picked this out, you know. I was like, yeah, I'll have this. I've got a jacket here. Actually, that's his as well. I'm sure there's other bits and pieces that I haven't really grabbed. But he's an extra large. He was quite a tall guy. Not fat, but really tall. So it's just like as I'm losing weight, this stuff's slowly going to get bigger and bigger on me, and then nobody
Mm.
can wear it. But no, like, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, but I consider you that kind of person, bro. You think of the materials, while I think about maybe what that design is on top of the material. Do you know what I mean? And then together we've got a unifying force of just fashion perfection. That's
What
how
do you
I
mean
see
the
it.
design on top?
Well, when you were talking about back when we did clothing, you were looking at like tri blends and this
Yeah.
blend and that.
Yeah.
I didn't look at any of that back in the day. I was
Okay.
just like, right, what can I print on this?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But even
So
don't you
yeah.
find like, I was even looking at this YouTuber and he was talking about potentially making merch, and a lot of the comments were saying like, no, that's cringy, right? Like YouTuber merch is cringy, right? And it's like some of these little things that they often say in videos, they just slap that on a t-shirt and they charge like double what you'd pay for a normal t-shirt for it, right?
Yeah.
And I agree, and I find that cringy, right? I can't wear something with a big thing written on it. And so again, I like the more subtlety, and that's why I like the plain t-shirts. But then the plain t-shirts, sometimes they're too plain, but that's where the texture speaks instead of having any particular print on it,
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like you said, those like statements or slogans are just very clearly like, just a cash grab. They are cringy.
Yeah.
But
Like, for example, I would never have a t-shirt with Mind Heist on it, but I would have a t-shirt with like MH,
maybe,
right?
yeah.
Like, if you know, if you don't know, like, it's for me. It's not for you to know what it is,
Yeah. I mean, I've never really bought any merch from anyone, I don't think. I'm trying to think on top of my head, but there's definitely been like certain podcasts and stuff that I listen to that have considered it. And only because their products are actually, there's a lot of effort into that design. It's not just, a slogan from one of their shows. There's a lot of effort and creativity that's gone into that. And then I'll know that, I had the thought the other day because I was like, oh, maybe I should go on their site and buy a t-shirt or something. And I just knew it'd be really funny because these guys are like from San Diego and I've listened to them since I was like a young teenager. So if I was to ever come across someone else wearing something like that, that'd be quite a cool connection to make. But Mind Heart's merch coming soon, it seems.
I don't know about that. But what about like, for example, like Freshly Grounded, I don't know how much you, what's the word? You feel a connection to like Freshly Grounded as a brand. But for example, I would definitely not wear a t-shirt that says Freshly Grounded, like all on the front, right? But if it was like a little logo on the corner chest thing, like maybe, I don't know. If I felt, to be honest, I don't listen to enough Freshly Grounded to be like into it like that. But you know what I mean? Like, how do you feel affinity to that brand?
So I'm going to bring it up if I can find it. They did have some clothing at some point.
Okay.
And I really liked it. Was here we go. Yeah. So it was more about what they stood for as opposed to
exactly. That's what a brand is, right?
Yeah. And I liked it, and I was like, oh, I really want this. I never got around to getting it. Can you see my screen?
Okay, let me bring it up. Yeah.
We're doing live reviews of other podcasts. Look at us. This is so meta.
Okay, what does it say?
This is their t-shirt. Like, what's your favorite struggle? And I saw Faisal wearing it, and there's this is pretty cool, actually. I like this. It's like a football jersey.
Yeah. That's a bit more creative, I would say, that football jersey one. What's your favorite struggle? This is like a fashion now, right? Where the writing is kind of small on the t-shirt.
Yeah, it's quite minimalist. I went through something like this when I made a couple of pieces, a couple of t-shirts just for myself recently, which I liked. But yeah, absolutely, because it's a bit more mature, I guess. As to my
less
stuff.
up in your face, less smile it sunnah.
Yeah. No, but I like it, man. I like it, and I like I like. There's a couple of other brands, but you know what? There's a couple of brands that I do like, and they are doing stuff like in terms of Islamic clothing, whatever. Not that I would consider that Islamic. That's quite broad, and I think that's what they were reaching for. I think going back to Pure XI in those days, for anyone who does remember, we were trying to enter that blue ocean kind of, this can be for anyone, but it definitely is recognizably Muslim owned, right? But I think there are levels of compromise when it comes to doing merch. There's levels of compromise that people make. Like, I came across a brand recently that I really like their stuff. I was so into it. I was like, oh, this is actually really creative. definitely some pure XI influence in there. Like my wife saw that and goes, "Isn't that your thing?" And I was like, "No, let him have it. Like I don't mind. I'm not there anymore. Do you know what I mean? Let him, because that's what art
You
is,
retired at the peak and left the game.
Yeah, this is it, bro. No, for real though. Like art isn't something, and going back to what you were saying earlier, art isn't something that I consider is like something that people come out with out of nowhere. Everything is borrowed. You know, that famous book, like Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah.
It's because we as artists, if I consider myself one, like the greatest thieves on the planet. Like when I go and make some, like look, my Instagram graphic design stuff, like I've got a page that is now dedicated to graphic design stuff after doing a poll on my Instagram. I said, should I start putting stuff on my old one, start putting stuff on my new one? It went 50-50, bro. Literally, the votes were 50-50. So I made a new account, which I've dedicated to just that. But bro, all I'm doing is bookmarking stuff that I like seeing. Like I'll follow so many different artists, bookmark. And then when I'm making my own thing, I'm like, okay, let me borrow some of this, borrow some of that, borrow some of this. That's it. And that's all it is. It's all borrowing.
That's what it is, yeah.
That's all it is.
That is what
people
it is.
don't come out of stuff out of thin air. There's inspiration.
And I suppose the best designers, like, you know, if you talk about Johnny Ive, you know, Apple designer, you know, people say he's like one of the, you know, best designers. He's very creative, this and that, right? But he must have been influenced, like he's borrowing from places, right? But he's just not borrowing from maybe the computer industry. So it makes him seem, you know, even more innovative, creative, because he might see, you know, a lake and you take something from that lake and put it on a computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. It's just your ability to borrow. And that's another thing, like, people get a bit stressed out and a bit angry when we have like copying, you know. And Muslims have this, bro. I think Muslims I feel like when Muslims go into that creative space, they still haven't matured in that kind of zone yet. At least the Muslims in the West that I see. At the moment somebody, like, you know, what's the word? I wouldn't say imitate, but just borrows some of those ideas and builds upon them, they get offended and they get like completely stressed out, you know. And I'm just like, yo, you don't have a monopoly on this. This is what art is all about.
Yeah. Although I think it could be because of the, how do you say it, the trauma, right? There is a bit of trauma there in terms of people like kind of blatantly copying and not being interested at all in giving credit. So because that's in the back of their head, their definition of what is copying becomes very like loose and like everything is copying, right? So I think that might be where it comes from. But I agree with you. Like,
it's so broad, bro, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take, I'll do an example. Podcasting is too on the nose, but let's say like beard oil and stuff like that, right? Or musk and stuff. Like, yeah, I'm going to pick one out of at the top of my head, like Black Oud. Okay, everybody knows Black Oud. They're one of the most popular ones on Instagram at the moment. But so many others popped up. And then you see in the comments, oh, you're just copying Black Oud. I was like, yo, he doesn't have a monopoly on oud. Like, anyone can sell oud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, that's what it is. It's like, oh, everybody's selling oud now. The problem is, and it's just the thing with the internet, and I realized this recently, it's like, if you stick anything into that search bar, like YouTube, for example, you search anything into that search bar, you get thrust into a community of people doing stuff on that. What happens is that the algorithm throws that stuff at you, and then you suddenly feel like everybody's doing this now, right? This happened the other day for me. I can't remember how. Just very briefly, I put Deliveroo into YouTube, and suddenly I was just swamped with all these Deliveroo entrepreneurs that were all like vlogging their Deliveroo life and how they make so much money and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I remember thinking in my head, I was like, yo, if I actually started watching these videos, I would think everybody's doing Deliveroo, you know? So I've been blasted into this. Same with podcasts, bro. Like, I'm sure, you know.
I just came across a new podcast, actually. And
really? There you go.
It's like, they're on like episode 4 or 5, and they were like, I did notice they got more views than us for some reason, but but they also were in Turkey and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay. There's a lot of podcasts, mashallah. Yeah.
I'm gonna actually search it on Google Trends because I've never done this before, but I'd like to see like
search what?
Search. Here we go. 2004 to present. Search like how popular podcasts have got since.
Oh. Crazy.
Ooh, let's have a look.
You one of the original OGs.
Bro, I've been listening for time, but it's just I just didn't think people were ready for it, you know? Let's have a look. So, are we there?
Yeah, it's not that as explosive as I thought, actually.
No, not at all. I thought it'd be a lot more, especially down here. So what? We started seeing the I was going to say meteoric, but not really.
2016, is a big thing.
2007. I started listening maybe this peak here.
2006. 2006 was when like Facebook kind of went global and like opened
Yeah.
up, and
Is it
YouTube.
YouTube? Yeah. So this is me really.
Yeah.
This first initial
I can
thing.
understand, like, so from 2006, it went down quite a bit over the next, say, 3-4 years. And I think that's maybe because of Facebook and YouTube, right? It's like I've got my content fixed from there, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, you'd think like around 2012 onwards, it would have got a lot more, but
It was a bit slow, but 2016, it kicked off.
yeah, I mean, just here, like this is where it started kicking
Yeah,
off. But I would have thought it would be a lot more than we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And you know, people like Tim Ferriss, who's got one of the biggest podcasts in the world, he was saying like he believes it's still early days.
That was United Kingdom, by the way. This is the worldwide one.
It's similar trend actually, but clearer trend. Yeah. So around 2015, 16, started going up a lot.
You know what? Like, it's. I've let's just stop this for now. I've because I've been working, like I said, 7 days a week. I've been commuting to a particular location every day.
Yeah.
And I've had to. My car's a bit weird. If I plug my phone into the USB, I can't hear anything from my phone, so I just listen to the radio if it's charging my phone. And I've been listening to the radio, bro, and it's just like every day, it's just been Ukraine.
Yeah, killer.
It's all been that stuff that we spoke about last episode about like the double standard stuff. I'm getting so stressed out. I'm like, I want to listen to something. I want to listen to something I want to listen to. I'm sick of them talking to me about all this stuff I don't care about anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just crazy, man.
I had the last car I had, I didn't have the auxiliary cable. So I had this, you know, there's Bluetooth things that connect into the cigarette lighter.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, old school. So I had that, and it wasn't the best connection. Sometimes I end up just playing it off my phone speaker while driving, you know?
Yeah. But I'm sure, like, when all these Muslim podcasts did start coming up, people just...
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry. That's what I was going to say. You know, Muslim Box Co., right? I was part of Muslim Box Co. A few years ago. And we had... I've never spoken about this, actually, but... One guy, what did he contacted us about something like a collaboration or asking for some guidance or something like that. And that was it. And the guy, you know, the guy that we know in common that was working with me on this, he knew this guy personally. Okay.
Right.
And the guy copied our Sunnah box, right? He copied it like exactly, even to the level where some of the copy on our website, he had written the same thing on his sales page, right? Like very blatant copying. And like we were kind of outraged, and because of the level of kind of the cheekiness, right? Because he was talking to us, right? We were emailing back and forth about something, and we were kind of open with him, I believe. And then like 1-2 weeks later, he's copy pasted something from our site. And then his product was similar to ours. We had the Sunnah box, and he made Shifa box, right?
Right.
And so then he was like copying us in a lot of different ways. And initially I was like outraged, but then I was just kind of like, may the best man win kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's no Coke without Pepsi. Do you know what I mean? Like this is what exists, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of Sunnah box, I'm looking at it now. I remember now. Because I've been using this beard brush all this time, and I forgot that's where I got it from. Like,
really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I use it all the time. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
And you've got the best perfume, bro. There's this particular perfume that you've got part of that set, and I was always curious to ask, where'd you get that from? Because I wanted to get it without the whole box, right?
Yeah.
I refused to ask because I was just like, no, it's part of the package. But yeah, man, like you're right. Without it, there's no competition. Without competition, there's no growth, right?
No, but I do think what he did was wrong. I do think so, right?
Oh yeah, I think.
And if I was able to talk to him, whatever, I would tell him like, "Come on, that's shameless." But I kind of just eventually was like, "Well, I'm not going to compel him to do something, right?" I think we did email him and we did say like, "Come on, bro, we screenshot it like." Dude,
word for word.
You know, but if he doesn't want to listen after that, it's like whatever. I'm not going to take him to court over it, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with like a unique idea that I suppose it is easily imitated, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Except the perfume's not.
No.
You know, the perfume was like mixed
Really?
at home. Yeah, a blend of different oils. Yeah.
Dude, I've still got it. Like I use it. You know, rarely. I use it on special occasions because I really like it.
Yeah.
and I've still got it. Subhanallah, I bought it years and years ago, so it's still strong. But no, man, yeah, you do make me think. Subhanallah, you do make me think. But then again, like, you know, getting into that cutting edge territory, like going back to what we were saying about podcasts, like, yeah, there's an explosion of different Muslim podcasts. But then again, is that just my algorithm playing with me, or is there more than I think? But that now, like, they've all settled into their own niches, which I kind of like. You know, there's definitely like podcasts that are tailored to, you know, there's one that I started watching the clips for recently. I forgot what they're called, but they're definitely tailored towards like Muslims that have just come off the roads. Do you know what I mean? And sharing those kind of stories and stuff. And I know that if I had one of those guys on Mind Heist, I'd be like, I wouldn't be able to necessarily delve into that, but you can tell that the hosts have kind of grown up in that environment, you know, and that's good, and that's for them, right? But us, I think, you know, I don't know, people. I mean, we've got an audience, and the audience likes us for particular reasons that I might not even be able to manifest or to actually describe, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a Telegram channel, and there's people in that Telegram channel that like to talk with us and stuff.
Actually, I want to talk about the Telegram channel, because one thing I was like, when people start to join the channel, by the way, the link's in the description, either on YouTube or podcast place. When people start to join and they, you know, we start to have a chat here and there, I kind of got a bit concerned that it would influence what I say on the podcast. And I absolutely don't want that to happen. Like, I start to realize, like one sister, I think she said, she'd been listening since this time, and she said, I may not always agree, but I enjoy it, or something like that, And just that one sentence, it made me think, and it made me think, damn, like it gave me flashbacks to, like, you know, the BLM episode and stuff, and I was like, people don't always agree, and like, in theory, in my head, I was like, of course, like, that's fine, you know, we're always open to critique, and of course people aren't always going to agree, and sometimes I've been very open and free about just saying kind of what I think, or throwing ideas out there, even if they're controversial, because I know I'm open to discuss everything, right? You know, I could be wrong. However, I realized at that point that I have been like this because I've been shielded from feedback. Partially, at least, right?
Yeah.
I've been shielded from feedback. So when we have the Telegram channel and they're like, I think what you said here was this, and I mean, no one said that so far, but you can imagine, right? Like, we've always had comments on YouTube, but, you know, most of the feedback's always like just positive and this and that. So, you know, if you dive deep into what people think about what you say, when your whole podcast is based on just chit-chatting, opinions, then I feel like it might affect how I behave on the podcast, and that shouldn't happen. You know, for the sake of the quality of, because you know.
I mean, for me, I think it's such a necessary thing, because I always ask myself, like, we've sleepwalked, and you know, you can agree or disagree, but we've sleepwalked into this kind of sphere of just being able to comment on so many different things without being checked. Without, you know, and we're in this echo chamber of like, is that what you think? Yep, that's what I think. Okay, cool, that's it. That's the way it is then. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I've definitely, like, I've seen now parts of the Dawah scene, not that I'd consider us da'is, but anyone can consider us whatever, but part of the Dawah scene that have had meteoric rises in their popularity, right? But now when they make really I don't want to say mistakes, but maybe poor decisions in maybe content or the way they've approached something. And it's like, you can't tell them anything now, because so many people, like, I was on recently, there was a day that posted something or made a bad decision. And I was just like, yo, there's no need, like, don't do that. You know, and everyone's commenting, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But because he's become so used to his worst enemies telling him not to do certain thing, he's then lumped any other device with that kind of thing, right? And I was like, no, if, like, we're quite small, you know, grassroots kind of podcast, despite doing this for so many years, I want that, and I've been hungry for that kind of discourse, and that's why, like, we do urge people to get in touch with us, and we do urge people to give us feedback, because at the end of the day, I don't consider us any different to the guys listening. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying, we've got credentials and you guys don't, so you need to listen to us. No. I want to open the discussion up. That's where I find the value. The value is in those discussions. So if you guys, like, are interested in talking to us about some of the episodes or future episodes, please get onto our Telegram channel. If you go on Instagram, I put a little highlight actually. We've got a link on the description. We'll put a link on the description
Yeah.
as well. But on Instagram, I've got a little highlight thing that should send you over to the Telegram channel. It's quite small at the moment, but that's fine. That's what the kind of where we want it anyway.
And some people won't want to join, or they don't have Telegram, and in that case, we have the email and the Curious Cat and stuff on the website.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. We spoke about, actually, I just put a clip up now about that sort of closed social media stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm clearly a lot more open on the Telegram about, and I like that. I like that element of like behind the scenes kind of
Throwing the random videos up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is it because I think that's the community kind of element that I want for my post. I really do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the actual topic that I wanted to discuss, it took us 25 minutes to get onto it.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's a subtopic, really. Have you ever, maybe you've come across these videos on YouTube of morning routines? My morning routine, my productive morning routine. You have,
no,
right?
yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Have you ever like got into that? Like got into a
No.
morning routine? No. I mean, of course you have, like by virtue of having a job, right?
But are you commenting on the ones that are like absolutely ridiculous? Like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I wake up at like 4 a.m. and this is what I do and I have this.
Well,
Dude,
that's one type. Yeah, that's one type. Yeah.
Oh man, there was this one that was literally dreadful. It was so dreadful.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's like so cringe, and
he drives a Lamborghini, and it's like at no point do you see him working.
Yeah, okay,
like,
yeah. It's almost like
companies.
Yeah. It's like a parody kind of.
Almost, but it's serious, bro. The channel that's doing it is serious.
But then there are the just standard kind of productivity channels, or self-development channels where they're like, I do meditation, I drink my coffee, I do whatever it is, right? But have you ever kind of sat down and designed your morning routine, or not really?
No, like a lot of this. If we listen to Mind Heights maybe a few years ago, there was a peak for me when I was into all of this sort of stuff, and I think a lot of young Muslim men were into this sort of stuff, and then it kind of just hits rock bottom again, and it's just like from taking it all so seriously, I start just cringing at all of these things, and it's just like, and I don't know if it's because the content that is being created isn't being created to necessarily help people, it's being created to make them money and make them like, it's it's monetized stuff, isn't it? And then you kind of just see through it all, everything you can see through it. So when I come across any of these routine videos, like you come across some celebrity ones where it's like, oh, Mark Wahlberg's, gym routine or morning routine. He wakes up at 4 and he does this and he eats that. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, I see through it. You've done it for the video. You're not doing this every single day because life doesn't work like that. But I don't know. Like, that's just my perspective. Maybe you do. Have you?
But I think some people definitely have that. Like,
think so?
Like for real. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're not that guy. Basically, innit? You're not that.
Guy.
You're the label I always put on you is spontaneous. You're more the spontaneous guy. I'm more like the design architect kind of thing, right? Yeah, definitely people have these morning routines and they actually do it every single day. I mean, I do to an extent, definitely. It's just I've been thinking about it recently because I was talking to a coaching client of mine and we were talking about kind of, just getting stuff done, getting more stuff done, and also talk about concentration, which maybe we'll get into later in this episode. But I was like, there are these kind of 4 pillars of morning routines that everyone synonymously recommends, and I don't think I do any of them right now. And it's always been something that I read, and I kind of most of them I agree that they would help. But then I'm like, look, you can only build one habit at a time. So let me like build this other habit, right? So like I've been building like the Quran everyday habit, or the Azkar al-Sabah habit, or whatever it is, praying in the masjid habit, whatever it is. So you got to kind of build one habit at a time. Otherwise I feel like I'll just give up. So I take things slowly in terms of building habits. But now I'm thinking like, okay, I want to build like a higher level of ability to focus and concentrate. So these 4 pillars that you just hear everyone recommending, from the old school guys, from the Tony Robbins to like brand new YouTubers, and it's kind of goes like in the morning, if you do like exercise, some form of exercise, meditation. Some people talk about cold showers. Cold shower is not really universal that everyone recommends it. What else? So meditation. we're talking about exercise, affirmations, right? You know, like basically cheering
Just makes
yourself
me,
on,
oh,
which
makes
is
me
a bit
cringe.
cringy. Yeah, it is cringy. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and there's one more I'm missing, but these are kind of the pillars, right?
Yeah.
And I think I want to try it.
Oh, I mean, you look great today. You're going to do great things today. I mean,
I'm thinking out of these that I've just mentioned, like I can only pick one to start, right? And I think the best one to start would be the exercise, right?
okay.
So I
Yeah.
think that's what I'll start with. I think it will, inshallah, have a good effect. But I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like number 2 is affirmations.
Yeah. Nah, I'm all right. Nah.
Affirmations, I'm gonna try that.
How are you going to do that? Go on. How are you going to do that?
So
Where do
I
you
need to
weave
look
that in?
into it a bit more. But
Okay.
basically, if I was to do it right now without doing further research, I would just like write maybe, I don't know, 10 to 20 phrases, like in the present tense, kind of describing myself, like what I do. Yeah. So for example, I have important work to do every day for the sake of Allah. Yeah.
Right.
If I read that out loud to myself and I hear myself, I read it consciously and I hear myself saying it, I do believe it will program myself to believe that in a more convincing way. Yeah. Or for example, I want to do deeper work, right? Do more focused work. Or let's say we want to like get a bit more motivated. So we would write a phrase about why we're doing our work, right? Which is kind of you're setting your intention, but you're saying your intention to yourself every day. I work hard for my family, or I work hard so that my family can X, Y, Z, and I expect reward from Allah for it. For example, yeah, like I do believe that saying this to yourself, especially out loud, day after day after day, I believe would have an effect on your subconscious brain. I would like program you to really have conviction in those things that you usually leave in the back of your head.
Do you habitually talk to yourself anyway? Is that a thing?
I do actually a little bit, but not in. Not, I don't say anything like this kind of stuff. I just say
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, like if I'm cooking, I'll be like, okay, let me just get that. Like I talk to
Okay.
myself like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Because it depends what angle you come from it. Because now that you bring it, like when you say it that way, then I would say that I've probably do that, but on the other side of the spectrum, where it's like, if I do something that I wasn't happy with, then I'm very self-critical, and I will just like, I'll look in the mirror and be like, "You're an idiot. Like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
That was a stupid thing
In
to
your
do."
head or out loud?
No, sometimes even out loud. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes out loud, and because I think I live in a space now that I don't have that figure on top of me to do that to me anymore. Like, my wife could say something to me, or my mum could say something to me, or my sister could say something to me. These are the dominant sort of people in my life. But there isn't that like male figure that I'm going to really take super seriously when they critique me anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be my dad, but
Yeah.
then for a long time, my dad wasn't,
Yeah.
around, and then obviously he passed away, and now there's no one really left that can.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
for me, it's like, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dominion over all things. But I channel what I think Allah would think of me
Yeah.
in that position. Do you know what I
Admonishment.
mean?
Yeah.
Self-admonishment, right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, I could have had an argument that I didn't need to have. Like, I will set a rule for myself, like, and it will happen all the time where I'll say, right, next time this argument happens or something happens, this is how I'm going to act in this argument, right? I'm going to just keep quiet. I'm not going to give the attention. And then I'll find myself in a situation, and then you just in your head you shouldn't feed into it, and then you just do. You think, okay, I'm just going to say this one thing, and then I'm going to stop. But then it grabs you, and then all you're left with afterwards is regret.
Yeah.
And it's those periods, bro, where I'm like, I could be anywhere, bro. I could be in my car, and I'm looking at the rear view mirror, and I can see myself, and I'm just like, you're an idiot. Why did you say that? Like,
Yeah, man.
do you know what I mean? But like, bro, but I have to because it's humbling, I think, for me at least. Because if I didn't do that and I just went down the whole, now you had every right and this and that, it's just nonsense, because who's going to tell me off otherwise? You don't have that anymore.
I think this whole admonishment thing is so important. It's so important for us men. And I do think, depending on the type of wife you have, a lot of it can come from your wife, If your wife is like on point, like she knows you, innit? She'll see through you, And so that can be helpful, definitely. Your mum could be that figure, but it depends what culture you come from. But I think Arab mothers are pretty good at that. But then I think where we're lacking a lot is friends need to be like that. Like, like we need to hold each other to a higher standard and be like, come on, bro, like you can do better than that.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
But sometimes we don't take each other. We have too casual of relationships, I think. I don't know if that's normal, but I just feel like I would benefit from having friendships where it's like, no, they won't accept me for who I am. They will call me out a bit. They will, you know? Like when I'm thinking of if I want to make sure I get something done, a project or whatever it is, if I think of, I need someone to like hold me accountable, to remind me to this and that. If I think of my friends, I'm like, no, I'm just not going to take that seriously enough, right? I need someone who's a bit distant, you know, a little bit distant. So I do that with my business partners. I think it works out well, even though we're kind of friends, like we very much are friends, but I don't know, we have this different kind of relationship in a way, I guess, because we got to know each other through working on business, right? But I think the admonishment thing is really, really important.
I value that way more than you know, the affirmations, in the sense of the positive affirmations, like, oh, you're doing something really great, keep it up. No, I don't really, I can't. But maybe that's just like an upbringing thing. Maybe I saw my life in a very negative way. Like maybe a lot of the going back to like education system and me doing well in, like, dad never said, oh, well done at the exam. Dad would say, that's what I expect from my son. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
like,
like
you know
the
what I
whole
mean?
what's it called? You know, cup half empty kind of.
Yeah, exactly. If you do bad, then it's the end of the world. If you do good, well then, yeah, I expect
normal.
You to do good. You know what I mean?
I just think of it from from a very, you know, functional, useful point of view. I feel I could do with that more in my life. I could do with more reminding myself at the forefront of my mind, like putting it in the forefront of my mind, like, you get up and you work every day for this reason. Yeah. This is your intention. Yeah. Or, you know, like sometimes we have like grand ideas and you think of the idea and it sounds cool and you would love to achieve that. But then, you know, days later it withers away and you kind of forget that excitement, right? So. But what if you could remind yourself of that excitement and that bigger goal every day? I just think it would do something to me. But you know, maybe I'll do it and I will report back and see how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to start with the exercise, definitely. And then I'll get onto maybe the affirmations kind of thing, yeah.
I think it's important because you mentioned earlier about, like, okay, if your wife can be, depending on what kind of wife you've got, she can see right through you and all that sort of stuff. I think I've got a complex about, like, cracks and showing them, all right? And I don't like, even though like I do and I fall into it and I will, you know, open up and talk to people, like talk to my mum or my wife or whatever, I always regret it immediately afterwards because I think it goes back to what I think we've spoken about before, about like, you're responsible for this, and then the crack within you is then a crack within the family, you know. And I see lots of families, I observe lots of family structures, I observe families in crisis, and I always take the root of that crisis back to the man who is responsible for that family. You know, and when they're loose and in no control, then everything falls apart around them. And suddenly and that's the thing, like, so when it comes to like your plans, your ideas, your theories and stuff, you can get very excited. You can get like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, and you go start telling all the people that you love and care about, right? But I think you have to bide your time.
I agree.
Easy. I think you have to bide your time.
Don't tell your wife like, I'm going to be a millionaire next year.
Yeah, I think it's important, and that goes to anyone, not just your wife. I think it's definitely for the world as well. You know, how many people do you sort of follow, and they're just like got a new idea every few weeks? And they just need to tell the world about it. They need to speak about it. They need to, you know, and it's part of their manifestation process and all this sort of stuff. Like, and there is definitely obviously value in staying silent and working in silence and just trying to do things in silence. You know, and reassuring your loved ones. I think if you've got a certain level, I'm trying to attain this and I'm always trying to chase this, but if you've got a certain level of stability in your own mind where you can have chaos in your mind but it doesn't leave your lips, you know, that's a beautiful kind of secure, because you know, as much as I would like reassurance from my missus, I don't want to worry her. So like, if I have concerns and I bring them out loud, it's never been well. You know, as much as supportive she is, she will naturally worry just like I'm worried. And now I've got to deal with her worry, you know, as well as my own.
No, I agree with you. I'm not saying this to say like bring worries. I'm saying it to say like certain goals you might like right now. This is a bit meta now. I'm saying that I want to do exercise every day. Yeah. Guess who's going to listen to this podcast?
Yeah.
My wife. Yeah.
Absolutely. Biggest
So
fan.
so next week, next week when my wife's like, dude,
What happened?
like that's
I saw
somewhere
that popcorn.
that's like good, right? That's what I mean. I don't mean like going and complaining or venting or these things.
Can you see, like, and not to, obviously I don't want to make it personal about you, but can you see how that element of just you showing weakness there, like you said you were going to do something out in the open, and now I know, let's say as your wife, I can see your private life and you didn't do it.
I think that should be avoided.
Sucks.
But
you see how that sucks?
It depends how you take it, right? Because, and I said this before on the podcast, the way like when I was speaking to my wife, like before we got married, I talked a certain talk and found that put pressure on me to be a certain way, like after we got married. So that was like positive pressure. But I generally do agree with you. Okay. I just think that one thing here and there, it's not going to harm you. But if it becomes a habit, I agree. Like it should be avoided probably. Yeah.
I think it's something we need to be conscious of as guys that do this podcast, because I think we will fall into that thing of, I'm talking to a brother, you're talking to a brother. And this conversation we're having, I forget that we even do a podcast 9 times out of 10, because we could be having this conversation at a cafe. Not that we get that much opportunity to meet up, but imagine we would. The conversations that me and you have, I have them with other close brothers as well, and that's quite secluded, quite constrained within that environment of these conversations with brothers. I've had some absolutely empowering conversations with some brothers, and I've come home to my family feeling like $1 million, like I'm about to take on the world, and I don't even need to share anything that was said, because it benefited me so much. But then you've got this phenomenon that we've got right now where everything we're saying is on record, and then I do feel an element of like when something comes up and I've spoke about it before, but then I behave differently to how I spoke about it because actually I'm living that crisis or living that situation. I do feel a bit hypocritical, and I do feel like, it was easy to talk about, but actually when you're in it, it's really difficult, right? So it's you've got even more, I suppose. Like this is an accountability test for us, doing 153 episodes of stuff that we can be accountable for, no doubt.
And that's how I try and take it. Like when I do think about this, is like, you must live up to whatever you said. Right. You must. So one thing I think about is how I talk about, whatever it is, being resilient or preparing for the end of the world. These kind of topics we sometimes talk about, learning certain basic skills, those areas where I feel like I don't fully live up to that, Not that I claimed on the podcast that I'm like, I'm basically a mechanic, bro. I fix any car. I never claimed that. But that's one area that comes to mind, when we talk about this.
It's interesting though, because those are the pockets of life that you may have been really, motivated by something or inspired by something. Like it's been a long time since I've delved back into the archives of our episodes and just listened to something. And I am really interested in doing so, because I think we've done this for so many years now that it would be interesting to just see how our ideas have changed. I would like to, maybe, I don't know, maybe one day we could do it, is like react to an old episode, like an old one. I would really like to do that, just to see, like, in all these years, would we still stand by what we said? Because the more we grow, and like we said, we had we've got a community of people commentating now and stuff. If someone was to dig up something, someone could say now, someone could put a comment, but back in episode 25 you said this, so why are you saying this now? And it's like, okay, let's break that down, because this is growth, isn't it? Let's see if there was a growth.
Good. That's why we need a producer.
There's one here. There we go. Episode 59 I'm looking at. That's from 2 years ago. I want to go older than 2 years, but it says marriage responsibilities, living in London on one salary, and fertility rates. That'd be an interesting one. It'd be interesting to listen to ones about marriage. There's loads of them. But subhanallah.
Well, that's one, bro. Like on the record, I think I've talked a couple times about like having kids, having lots of kids. Yeah. So now I got to stick.
Yeah,
The,
absolutely,
the, the,
man.
the biggest thing I've talked about is hijrah, which alhamdulillah, I'm kind of, I'm living that. But yeah,
Yeah, I guess so.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Where did you start? Where were you when we started? Were you in
I was
UAE or were you?
definitely in UAE, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. But then again,
Yeah.
that's cheating. Talk about hijrah when you're already there.
Well, yeah, but
You'd
it's
already done
like
it
I
by now.
quit smoking. Now let me talk about quitting smoking.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Like sometimes I worry, like
But
I
by the way,
will.
I don't even consider I did hijrah because I never lived in the UK. Like
Yeah,
I did for like 3, 4 years of my adult life. Like, and that was like the whole time I was there, I was like, yeah, I don't really live here. It's temporary. So,
yeah, I
I
guess
can't
so.
say I did hijrah. I just don't live in a Kafir country kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I worry that I'll get so passionate about something that I'm going to do, and then like in a year's time, I just got nowhere near it. And I think that's it. But then
Yeah.
again, that's just people's opinions. That's just who cares really what how the chips may fall. But
Bro, the biggest like public failure. I mean, it's not failure, okay? But just the worst thing, and this is kind of links in with what we're talking about, is my book. Yeah. Like,
What?
like I hate it now.
Really?
Like like I said this to my wife, like, I think this is the biggest thing, like biggest fail of my life. Yeah.
Really?
This is the biggest flop of my life. And alhamdulillah, it's not a failure. Like the book is finished and I've got the printed proof thing and I just need to give the go ahead to print the rest and stuff. But it's taken so long and every like angle, like everything, like right now, yeah. I printed one copy to see what it looked like and there was just a little couple tweaks to do to the cover. That alone took like 10 days, right? Like just a tweak to the cover because I
Yeah.
tried to do it myself, then it wasn't quite right. So then I told the designer to do it. And like, okay, every part of the process of writing this book has pretty much been like that, I would say, right? And it's just like, I feel like it's the biggest failure. It's not a failure, right? The book exists and stuff, but it was just a total flop, man. And the thing is, like, I got pre-orders, which is obviously the thing that
Yeah.
makes me sad. It would be one level if I said, yeah, I'm writing a book, and then the book just like really doesn't come out, right? But
Right.
if you write the book and then you get pre-orders, that I wasn't happy with that, to be honest.
Right.
Of course I'm committed to doing it and I'm doing it and alhamdulillah and I push through and everything. It's true I didn't like promise any specific deadline, but that probably is the biggest like thing I've put out there, and it's not that I haven't fulfilled it. It's just it's taken longer than I ever expected. However, on the positive side, you could say I do consider that like out of my whole life, that's probably the biggest fail I've ever had in my life. Alhamdulillah. Like it's not a terrible, huge thing.
Well, I suppose if you were to do it differently now, you've learned from that, and you would say, okay, now I'm just going to put this book out when it's done, and not tell anybody that I'm doing it until
I
it's
probably
done.
would
Right?
do that, yeah. And I learned like I should just not write a book, right? Because books have something weird about them where you get into this very much perfectionist mindset, like where the fact that it's printed and it's like if I print the book and it goes out to a bookshop or whatever, I can't change that, right?
Right.
I can't change it. But a YouTube video, I can take it offline, I can edit it and re-upload it. I can do many things. That's why with YouTube, I put out like maybe between 200 and 300 videos I've put on my YouTube channel. And that's just like, boom, it's quick, right? It's a quick turnaround, quick process. You get the feedback and you make the next one and you just keep going, right? But with the book, it just feels very much like, oh, damn, like if I don't change this now, I'll never change it because it'll be printed and out there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
puts you in this mindset of like, damn. That's why, like, I think a good way of doing a book is write blog post after blog post after blog post, and then turn those blog posts into a book, right? Then you're getting feedback over time. You're putting it out there. You're not in perfection mode, and then you can just compile them together. As long as you're writing blog posts around one kind of subject.
People don't like that kind of content anymore, do they? They don't consume that kind of stuff. How many newsletters have I subscribed to? And I'm just like, why are you emailing me?
Yeah, reading is a bit. Yeah, I mean, I think I was surprised. Like one guy on YouTube, his audience is like young men, and he this is the guy that was talking about doing merch, and he's like, should I do merch? Would you buy merch? Do you think I should do merch? Right? And wallah, like half the comments, and there were hundreds of comments, half of them were saying you should write a book, I'll buy your
Right,
book,
yeah.
I want to read your book. That surprised me, it's like young men reading books. Like, I didn't know about that. But definitely, the way to reach this kind of people is with audiobooks, I think. So
Yeah. I would love to know, like, I would love to know if I was unmarried without kids at this age. Like, if I was 18 in 2022, as a practicing Muslim, like, how different would I be? A lot of this stuff that I think I've come across, is it that I've come across it late, or is it that it's only just come about? Do you know what I mean? Like all this self-help stuff, all of these, what you said, like, oh, young men reading books, is this a phenomenon that I kind of always existed, but I never knew there was there? Or is it just kind of developed in recent years?
I
Because I'm
think
looking at like,
it was less mainstream before, but it
do
definitely
you think?
existed. Yeah.
Because I was looking at like, who was I looking for? I came across a video earlier. Gabriel El Romani did a video where he's like 6 characteristics, I think it was, for someone to marry his daughter, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how old his daughter is. I don't know if it's just a thought experiment.
Yeah.
But it was quite a cinematic video. He was like sitting by a campfire and he was like going
Oh
through
yeah.
this.
Saw the
things,
kind of
right?
trailer for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, I wasn't thinking about him, but I was thinking about his audience, and I was thinking how like I don't remember this content existing when I was younger.
You mean in the Muslim sphere?
Yeah, like when I was like 10 years ago, let's say, when I started
Yeah,
practicing.
never,
I
bro.
don't
No.
remember.
No. Like the Muslim sphere arena is changed very, very much. So,
Do you think?
No, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Okay, the one thing maybe that hasn't changed too much is the lectures, like the Jum'ah khutbah or the kind of just durus in the masjid.
Right.
That's pretty much the same. But everything else, like we've been through so many phases. Remember the social experiments, the pranks,
Oh,
that's just one phase, right?
Yeah.
We've got all these sub niches. We've got like the red pill, like the Muslim red pill. We've got the Muslim like whatever self-development. You've got the the sisters who are like, oh, divorce and like men are bad. We got so many different corners, right, of the thing. We got the, what's it called, the honest tea talk kind of thing. We got so many areas, to be honest. So that area, that's completely different to 5 years ago even, right? Bro, 5 years ago, man, like 5 years ago, I feel like Ali Dawah was just starting out on YouTube.
No,
Right,
longer than that.
I think
Yeah.
that puts you into perspective, And now
Yeah, I mean,
he's got
yeah.
I noticed the other day he's got 700,000 subscribers, right? Like he's made, like that's mainstream, That's like a big channel, right? But in terms of just general self-development, like from like English speaking, like Western authors, no, that's been around for decades. People like Brian Tracy they were writing these books in the 60s and stuff like that, I believe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
It's just like,
it was not. It was very much, from what I understand, from the content of those books, right? Because I was reading those books like 10 years ago. The content of the book suggests to me that it was very much for like business people, like men, like very much men and very much business people, salespeople, right? How to communicate better, how to sell better, how to motivate yourself to reach your sales targets, like a corporate guy in a sales job, like this kind of thing. Right. And then you've always had, of course, the women's side of it, where it's like, how to feel more confident, how to love yourself. Like that's always been around as well for a very long time. And I just think, then the more mainstream, like then it did definitely went more mainstream. Tony Robbins has done a lot to make it a bit more mainstream. So his books obviously sold a ton. But then like Tony Robbins, you could say he's still an acquired taste. But then you've got people who are much easier to swallow, like James Clear, with Atomic Habits, or Ryan Holiday. These people, it's like anyone can accept like what they're saying.
I sometimes like I want to, going back to what we were saying about looking at our old episodes, I kind of want to see, because I kind of picked up a bit of that towards the end of my, I don't want to say like, I don't know, when my kids were young. So when Suleiman was really young, I still was like not feeling the pressures of being, responsible over a whole family. It's quite, so that's kind of where I had like this wiggle room of like, oh yeah, I can absorb all this content and become this person and stuff. And I was very passionate about it, and I spoke about it on my notes quite a lot. And now like it's all soured for me, bro. Like, I think about a lot of that kind of content and a lot of that sort of stuff, and I just don't take it seriously. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if I just become bitter towards it. Like, You know, some of the stuff that, and this is not knocking, I'm not trying to knock anybody, it's just the content itself. Like looking at that audience of maybe Gabriel Romani, or I know the Three Muslims talk a lot about this kind of stuff of like masculinity and this and that. And it's like, oh, are we trying too hard to figure this out? Like it's just, it's kind of, it's so natural to kind of fall into it. And then I'm wondering, maybe like I've just got it good where I know what I want. And maybe there's a lot of young boys.
No, I
that
do
don't
think you've
know
got it good. Yeah, I do think that's
in
why.
that sense.
Yeah.
But I think because I think a lot of guys worry about how they're going to be when they have a family, that they want to literally have it etched out, planned in front of them before they embark on that journey.
Yeah.
But I think I've come at it from the other way around, where I think, actually, guys, just do it, man, because it's the family that will rationalize you. It's not the other way around. You can't prepare for this in the sense that you want to. You can't, like, I feel like this micromanaging of masculinity has become a bit too much, where it's like, there is no way you're going to remember all these lessons from this content and apply it to every situation. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
100%.
You know, and 100%. It's not like every single time you have a problem with your wife, you're going to email brother Gabriel, brother this or brother that for advice. Like that in itself demasculates you, in my eyes. It's like, no, if you can't figure it out, like every time you have a crisis, you're going to have to email. Because that's what's happening now, bro. We've got these young boys that are literally at every single turn they face with something. They're like, okay, what would the ideal masculine Muslim male do in this situation? Okay, let me email brother and find out. Wait, pause there. I'll come back to you. Let me try and figure out what the best thing. Like it has to be a natural development, and I think we have to thrust ourselves into these responsibilities and really. Accept mistakes. Like you're gonna make them. Like learn from it. Like I was talking about self-admonishment earlier. Like we do base ourselves obviously on the perfect individuals, in the sense like we base ourselves on the prophets, right? And we think, okay, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how would he react in this situation, etc., etc. We don't have the luxury of infallibility. We are going to make mistakes. Be prepared to make them. Be prepared to look like an idiot. Be prepared to look like a fool. Like at the end of the day, like I think what it is we have these role models online that talk about masculinity a lot. You know, I'm not trying to pick on Brother Gabriel. I actually love the work he does, and I think it's really valuable. However, you in your head, in your psychology, you can't imagine him making a mistake in a situation like that, because he talks about masculinity all the time. But guess what? You know, may Allah bless him. I'm sure he's made so many mistakes in his life. I'm sure that's how he's learned all of this stuff. But we're trying to be cookie cutter men in the sense that we think that, right, I need to get all of these lists down. Okay, be a man. Like, what are these rules of life, so to speak, like that Jordan Peterson thing, right? All this kind of stuff. Here's an example which people don't think about. Jordan Peterson, with all of his, all of his accolades and all of his books and all of this stuff, a lot of Muslim guys would take all of those lessons and think, yeah, this is what I need to be. I need to be this. I'm sure you've come across those compilations where it's like he destroys. Look how he's destroyed so many people in these arguments. There's compilations of him just like giving it back. He had a mental breakdown recently. On the outside of that, you would see him as a weak male just because of everything he said, that he couldn't handle and digest it. Right, but it just shows that we have maybe lifted people into these positions of like almost infallibility with the content they've created, to the extent that we feel like we need to refer to them every time we have an issue, when you're not going to have those people with you and those videos next to you every time you deal with an issue. You're going to have some self-reliance, and there isn't this codified book of masculinity. No offense to your codified book of masculinity, but there isn't something you're going to refer to. Because, bro, this is all I'm. The reason I'm saying this is like, I think I basically drove myself into this position where I felt like every time I was in a situation of crisis, I had to refer back to a lesson that I learned. Like, oh no, ego is the enemy. Oh no, the obstacle is the way. Like I kept doing this every time I dealt with something, right? And then it's like, no, do you know what? The biggest lessons you're going to learn aren't from these people. It's from your own mistakes, because your situation is so tailored to you that it's that self-admonishment. Like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that to my mum. I shouldn't have dealt that way to my sister. Right, next time I'm going to try and remember, to do this, this, and this. You are your greatest teacher. Your failures are your greatest mistakes.
You know, when we do, like, when I was doing my teacher training, one of what they taught us is one of the most effective ways of learning is for students to mark either their own work or mark other students' work. And that's kind of like what you're saying, right? You have to, you either you learn from your own mistakes, or you need to reflect on your mistakes and create your own lessons from your mistakes. Right. And that's what marking your own exam is. It's the same thing, basically.
Absolutely.
It's a strong learning method.
I do feel like it's damaging to a guy's self-esteem, because if you go back to what we were talking about, was it last episode, the episode before, about like men not having the confidence to maybe approach somebody for marriage or whatever, right? How do they? Okay, let's say I'm a man who hasn't got that confidence. How do I approach it? Okay, let me go on Google, find some advice. Okay, let me go on YouTube and see how I can be a better, sort of more confident man and all this stuff, right? Okay, I followed all these rules. Okay, rule 1, do this. Rule 2, do this. Rule 3, do this. Okay, cool. I learned from the master guru on how to approach women, right? And then you go there, you get shot down. You're like, I must have not followed the rules. I need to go back and you know what I mean, codify this in my mind. When actually, you just need to look at, you need to go internal with it, like kind of forget what people are saying in that regard and just assess yourself in that. I just worry that maybe guys are kind of beating themselves up too much for not being man enough, you know. And I think that's what it is. It's like there are the like codifications of what masculinity means because of the people that are talking about it the most, you know. And you know, some of the stuff, like, okay, Gabriel Romani said one of the things he was saying was like, okay, for this man to marry my daughter, he said something like, okay, they have to pray in the masjid, fajr in the masjid. I was like, okay, I respect that, right? And then it was like, he has to be able to fight, so I need to fight him and then at this point I was getting a bit lost. Okay. And then at this point I was just like, no, you've lost me now. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not that, but my issue isn't that. That's his preference, and he can have that. Yeah,
that's his choice. But what it means for the viewer.
Yeah, it codifies this idea of masculinity for the viewer.
And this is there's so many like things I want to bounce off from what you're saying. This is the beauty of going to the actual source. Okay, like when you go to the Sirah and you look at how the Prophet ﷺ was and look at how the Sahaba were and how the Prophet ﷺ kind of encouraged the Sahaba to be certain ways, what you find is that there were anomalies, right? Like there was Ibn Mas'ud, skinny guy. Yeah. But his what did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said his legs what did he say? They weigh as much as Mount Uhud on the scales, Yawm al-Qiyamah. So this is why it's like even like this like skinny guy, okay, but man, like a man, right? Skinny guy, but a man. So when we like go out there, we put out this message that to be a good Muslim man, you gotta be ripped, for example, And even like the non-Muslims, when they're making videos, when they try and represent, you know, like these memes, like Giga Chad and stuff. What does Giga Chad look like? He's muscly as hell. He's got certain jawline, this and that, right? But wallah al-azim, like, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing certain other things good. Like it's good to be strong, no doubt. It's like a good thing. But it's not like a prerequisite to be like a human being, like a normal, like good man, right? And that's why we have to, you know, like when inshallah you read my book, like you'll see like most of it is character traits, it's discipline, it's the stuff you're talking about a lot of the time now, like not relying on others all the time, like trying to figure it out yourself first before you ask for help, right? These kind of things really. And you know, I would say the biggest part about fighting or physical ability, it's not that you're strong and you look like Giga Chad. It's that it's what that does to your mind. Right. So when you're fit, you act differently, right? When you exercise, your brain is different when you exercise, right? You feel a different way about yourself, right? So I would say it's more about that. But you're right, bro. Like we need to be careful about what we're saying is and isn't acceptable, like because certain people, like we want to let them know like what's the minimum and what's the bonus, right? What's like the Prophet ﷺ, actually, if you think about it, he is very, very specific about what is fard and what is not fard, right? Like the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't always, I mean, maybe this is debated, but he didn't always pray witr. Like he missed the witr once just to show that it's not fard, you know? Maybe that's not the best example, but you get the point. So the Prophet ﷺ actually really, like in many occasions, he made it clear what is fard and not fard, so that we would know, so you know, then people don't think, oh yeah, to be a Muslim man I must be ripped, you know, like it's not fard, if you like, if you want to put it in those words, it's not fard to be ripped, but it is fard to, you know, to pray and to this and that and whatever, right?
I mean, I think
to go back to what you're saying about, so you know, you're saying like you go to propose and you think, okay, I need to do this and this point.
Yeah.
Bro, that is me. Okay, not in the context of proposing,
But it
but
goes back to what we were saying, doesn't it? At the start of this, where you
Right.
said, okay, maybe I'm more spontaneous, and you're more like, okay, get the rule book out. And
but
figure
it's
out what
two,
the
there's
rules-
two things to it.
Go for
Okay,
it.
one is that okay, me and you are different minded in that how we approach things, but number two is you didn't have these problems, maybe, you know, and that's why you can't imagine like going and seeking counsel from someone on how to do something.
Maybe, yeah, but do you know what? I'll be honest with you. I didn't have these issues during my. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. I've just diagnosed myself in this very moment. I had these issues before I was practicing, bro. Like if you see pictures of me and stuff, and like in that non-Muslim scene of like high school scene of you've seen them in movies where it's like the nerdy kid getting bullied and stuff. I had that, and but we didn't have this content back then to just figure out how to do it. So like the only way of I was highly influenced by movies. Like I would go to a movie and I'd see like the main character and he's like the underdog and he gets through it. And I'm like, oh, I need to do that. Like when I next go to school, right?
Yeah.
And no, you like that buzz only lasts a couple of days and then you're back being the loser of school again, right?
Yeah.
But I realized like something you brought up earlier about the Sahaba, akhi, is like you can tell the difference between Abu Bakr and Omar without knowing whose the description's about. Like you put a description of Omar and put a description of Abu Bakr in terms of maybe their physique, but also like their characteristics, whatever. And you can tell the difference. But both of them were on the truth. Okay. And I feel like my issue is like it's codified into this one particular thing that is very mirrored to the Western world. When actually you can have Sirat al-Mustaqim, but different flavors of it. Not the flavor, not the Sirat itself. We're all walking that path.
The Sirat has different lanes.
Yeah, that's it. There's different lanes into one direction. You know what I'm trying to say? So
actually, bro, very interesting point about this is, I think it was Dr. Leonard Sachs in his book, it's called The Boy Crisis or something, yeah? He was saying that when boys only see what you're talking about, they only see the one kind of codified way of being a man. When they're different to that, for example, they're less aggressive than what they think a man should be. They're less aggressive. They think, well, if I'm not like that, I must be gay. He said if boys don't see different models of how to be a man, they assume that if they're not like that kind of the stereotype, then I must be gay then. And he said this is actually a thing.
Yeah. So this is it, bro. So this was going back to like that crisis of like teenagehood, right? When I started believing in myself is when I discovered Islam and stuff. But it wasn't necessarily Islam that did that. It was the self-confidence of just having, acknowledging my own strengths and going with them. My strength of being different, being the brown kid at school, being from another country, the stuff that I didn't care or didn't value because nobody else valued. When you then flip it on its head, no, I do value this stuff and this is who I am. That's when I found my own confidence. Okay, I found my confidence in being that person.
8 Mile.
Maybe.
No, you know what I mean.
Of course,
in the
bro.
movie.
The movie. But no, bro. No, but can you see what I'm trying to say? Like, okay, look.
But you're giving a tip now.
No,
you're a guru right now.
No. I'm not saying be this and be that. I'm saying find your own thing in yourself.
Yeah, I know, but that's a tip.
Maybe it is a tip. But I'm trying to tell you how I like came across it in a world where that content didn't exist. That content didn't exist.
Yes.
So ultimately, like, I think what you just said about like if you don't fit into this particular piece of the puzzle, then you might consider yourself less of a man and possibly even a homosexual because of it. Bro, that is a real critical issue. I don't doubt that exists at all, because I remember having moments where I felt like less of a man just because I couldn't do this, couldn't do that. But I remember I got into a fight once at school, akhi. And that's where I found my strength. And it wasn't in like being able to beat this person up. Not that I even went there. I remember being able to just verbally riddle this guy's mind. Like I just got into this dialogue with this guy and I just ran circles with him verbally. And I remember at that point thinking, this is me. This is what I do. I can talk to someone into submission, just messing with their mind in that sort of always lyrical fashion. And then when I went into this job, bro, where this conflict-ridden job where it's just literally riddled with conflict, and you did have colleagues that the first thing they would go to is, right, I need to get hands on, and this is how I'm going to deal with this situation, right? And I found strength in actually talking that person down. And I found my strength in actually having a conversation. Doesn't mean that if I have to get hands on, I'm going to shy away from it. But actually, I found a strength and I went down that road. And I think what the thing is like, you will have people that you encounter actually that won't understand the certain skills that you've got, and they'll see, because they don't see any of their heroes with those skills, they'll deliberately just be like, okay, you're not really a real man, are you? You need to be proud of that skill. You need to go like double down on your strengths, as they say, right? And like, you think about the variety of men in the world. Like, it's not all like, you know, Khalid bin Walid sword wielding, you know, that kind of thing. Like, there's so many different avenues. Like, I think of like, okay, great inventors and great scientists and great this and that and great, you know, pioneers and great adventurers and great all sorts, right? You know, and I'm sure the West has their fair share of I mean, look at, I'm not going to give you this example, like, but people idolize Winston Churchill, but he's not necessarily the most Chad looking guy, is he? You know what I mean? But it's because of the principles, because of the things they said and the things they stuck by. There is going to be obviously overlap. There is going to be like, or be a man of your word, you know, there is going to be that kind of thing. There is going to be this level of respect. There is going to be this like, don't go back on your word, and all these kind of honor based.
I saw this video today. It's like 10-second video, and it was called like, Ronaldo is a man of his word, and when he scored 400 goals, he was being interviewed, and I don't know, they're like, you know, oh, you scored 400, you know, you think you're gonna keep going like this? He said, I hope I score 400 more. And the other day he scored another 400, so it's 800. So it's like, he's a man of his word.
This is it, man. And I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe sometimes I have these thoughts that are not fully formed. I'm trying to articulate them.
But I still think it's a personality thing, and it's a, you know, where you are. But what I meant was, in terms of I was that guy, is that, you know, so, you know, like 8 years ago, you know, I was in a certain place, which I do find like many young men are in. I was in a certain place in my mind, and it was the 5 tips for this and that got me out of it. I very much feel like that, you know, I very much used that, and I very much, you know, and many people read these things, but I guess many people don't implement it or whatever. But Allah gave me tawfiq to implement some of these things, which allowed me to change my self-talk, for example, which made a big difference. Even just little things, you know, like Salat an Nabi when I'm feeling anxious or whatever. Learning a little bit here about the names of Allah, and seeing that in my manifest and stuff. Like these things is like these tips you're talking about, like got me out. I feel very much that way, right? And it won't be the same for everyone, but at least for certain people, maybe the people that look for these things, like I think it's undeniable, right? And that's why, remember, I don't know if you remember, when you were close to getting married, I was telling you about these books like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Yeah. I remember this because I remember specifically, I was at work and I was texting you about it, and you're just not interested. Yeah. No. I was like, damn, like he's getting married, like that's a big decision and stuff. Like you gotta like learn this stuff, you know. But you see, that shows like how different people are different, right? But the point is, like, some people really will benefit from it. At the same time, I do think what you said is like spot on in terms of we do need to get to a point where we're less risk averse. Okay, so it's like, I mean, the whole world is more risk averse these days, I feel, right? Because we've got such a high level of comfort, high standards we aim for. It's like, for example, you go to uni, if you don't get a job within 6 months, 1 year, it's like, damn, the world's ending, you know? But like, come on, like, you know, give people a break, Annie. So I think that is a problem, right? Like having such a high, you know, failure is set so high, right? So in order to avoid that failure, we want to avoid risk at all costs, and so we go to so and so for help and so for advice and listen for advice. You know, like I'm in a Telegram group. Actually, it's Gabriel Romani's Telegram group. There's like 2,000, 3,000 guys in there, and you get people asking for advice. Like there was one married guy who was asking for advice on something to do with his marriage, and I believe like 90% of the people in there are not married.
Yeah.
And bro, they're throwing crazy advice at him. Okay.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
But it's like, what drove a married man who's probably older than most of these guys in the channel? Why is he asking for advice there? Like, what is it about himself that he feels he needs to ask these people for advice? You know? So I do agree with you on that. Like, there needs to be a level of, yeah, maybe I'm going to read the tips. Maybe I'm going to try and implement the tips, but I need to just do as well. Like, I need to be an action taker, and I need to learn. If I flop, then I need to learn.
I think it comes with an element of self-loathing. I think there's a famous saying of "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," right? And I think what happens is you get rid of everything about yourself to become this thing, this person that you've read about, okay? And you can sustain it for a certain level of time, and then when the cracks show, everything comes crumbling down because suddenly this ideal person that you've transformed yourself into, you face another problem. Right. And you're like, but I'm doing it perfectly. Like, I'm doing like, it's not working. Where do I go now? And it just doesn't make sense to you. And I think Islam to me is like this great purifier where like it scoops up my personality. Okay. And you shake it. It's like, you know, when you're looking for gold,
Sieves it out.
yeah, it sieves out my personality. All the stuff that isn't good, all the haram things. When I started practicing, all that stuff that wasn't good, it kind of obviously went away. The stuff that was left over is my strengths that I can then benefit the ummah with. Okay, whether that is I'm into art and design and stuff. Does that make me any less of a man because some other guy can only lift weights and he can't flip and draw a circle? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like this kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, my strengths are in that. Okay, and I'm proud of that, and I'll carry on with that. And I've always been like a contrarian when it comes to that. But like I am surrounded with brothers who are, you know, this is like a knock to them. This is who they are. They do chase that kind of typical, like big beard, big muscle kind of physique, and that's the way, and like, oh, and speak with a deep voice and blah, blah, blah. And I sit there and I laugh at a lot of that, right? And they laugh at me and they say, oh, you're from Brighton and this is why you're this way and this is why you're that way, right? And I always get those jokes, right? But at the end of the day, like, I'm so happy and comfortable with who I am, and I have this shining sort of love for the deen in that regard. That just because they interpret the deen in a way that, you know, like I said, big beard, big muscles kind of way, I don't see that as being wrong. But I also don't see the way that I interpret how I would need to be wrong. Okay, and I think what my biggest concern is, like, we're going to create a generation of guys that are so self-critical, that are so by the rule book, like they've codified. Look. At the end of the day, akhi, the hadith, the Quran, and the Sunnah, okay, they're quite broad because they also describe many different people, not just the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, you've got a broad spectrum in the Quran of all these different prophets and all these individuals. The same with the hadith, and it's all these riwayat of different people. And personality is something that is so unique to each and every one of us, because we've even got that tradition in our religion where it speaks about how souls can align because they may have met in a previous life. Okay, and maybe like me and you, for example, we have a I don't know, a reflective relationship.
Bro,
where
we
don't agree on
definitely had a podcast in the previous.
Which is what I mean. But there's people that obviously that you just don't get on with, and your personalities can be completely different. There's nothing wrong in having a different personality, and it's like, I don't want everyone to just become this cookie cutter thing where actually internally they're just self-loathing and they can't keep it up.
And they're putting on a mask or an act. Yeah,
that's it.
But
like,
bro, you're just being yourself, and that's why you're a Chad, bro.
That's what. Just be yourself in the best way, though. Like, look, there's going to be things that are lines that we draw when there's like, if there's things about yourself that are destructive and haram and all of this stuff, you know, just because you're addicted to cocaine doesn't mean I'm saying be yourself. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, get rid of that kind of stuff. But bro, the world is vast. Allah's land is vast. Yeah, and it's like, find your strength wherever it is and go for it and be that person and be proud of who you are in that regard. And just because other people are have their strength somewhere else, doesn't mean that you have to be that person.
Yes.
But anyway, I think my children are really upset, so I'm going to have to kind of abruptly end the podcast, bro.
It's a good time to end.
Inshallah.
Check all the links in the description for the Telegram, the contact us, the contribute to us, all of that. mindhousepodcast.com. And we'll leave it there, inshallah. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik shadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I wonder if you can hear them crying on the podcast.